It's the 2nd of December 1939, on a British cargo liner off the west coast of South Africa.
Have you heard about the German?
Yeah.
They sunk another ship south of us last week.
What? We're being shelled! We're under attack!
Tell the captain!
What the hell was that?
At the bridge, Captain William Stubbs is already on full alert. His binoculars reveal a terrifying sight. Stalking them is a 16,000-ton German monster, a heavy cruiser-sized ship armed with battleship-sized 11-inch guns. A pocket battleship.
Full power!
Aye, aye, sir.
Send the distress signal!
The small ship turns to flee, transmitting all the information they can in the last minutes they have left. A light shines from the enemy, blinking in Morse code.
They're ordering us to cease transmission.
To hell with that! Keep transmitting! Make sure every ship in the region knows they're here!
Aye, aye, sir.
Captain Stubbs keeps watching the enemy growing on the horizon. The ship's massive 280mm guns are aiming straight towards him. He recognizes that profile. It's the Admiral Graf Spee.
It's a Spee! Put that in the transmission! Pocket battleship Graf Spee!
Yes, sir.
They keep sending all the information they can, dragging on the encounter until the fearsome warship is right on top of them. Continued resistance would be dangerous. Stubbs has no option but to surrender.
Cut power and stop transmitting. It's over.
The Doric Star falls quiet. Aboard the German warship, Captain Hans Wilhelm Langsdorff watches as his men board the small cargo ship. They take the crew captive and bring them aboard the heavy cruiser before proceeding to ransack the ship and set up scuttling charges. It's a practice procedure at this point, one that Langsdorff is all too happy to see completed with professionalism.
Gut gemacht.
Back on the upper deck, Captain Stubbs is singled out and taken to the brig. Behind him, massive explosions wash across the waves, followed by cheers from the German sailors. But while the cargo hauler sinks into the abyss, thousands of miles away, a Royal Navy squadron hears its dying transmissions.
Sir, Graf Spee got another one.
Commodore Henry Hardwood thinks over the new information.
Bring the officers.
Under his command are heavy cruiser Exeter and light cruisers Ajax and Achilles. They're patrolling off the coast of South America, as far away from the scene of battle as they could be. The Graf Spee has been their target for months, but with this transmission, Harwood gets the feeling they can finally bring its rampage to an end.
There's a change of plan. The Graf Spee claimed another victim at approximately 13 hours yesterday. I suspect South American traffic will be their next target. We need to be ready.
I agree, sir. But where?
I get the feeling they'll be moving to
Die Mündung des Rio de la Plata.
the River Plate,
Dort ist sehr viel Verkehr.
the choke point for all cargo ships headed for the Argentine and Uruguayan capitals.
Dort gibt es einige Ziele.
The 16,000-ton Graf Spee turns for its new destination, unaware that they're falling directly into Harwood's grasp. On the morning of the 15th of December, 13 days after the loss of the Doric Star, on board the heavy cruiser Exeter, Captain Frederick Secker-Ball supervises the early morning activity. The squadron has been patrolling the estuary for days. Lookouts are on full alert, waiting for Harwood's prediction to come reality. It's been a tough wait. Initial sightings suggest they're coming, but they haven't heard anything new for days. Until...
Confirmed smoke at 320. Lookouts at the stern report the enemy.
Sir, Howard reports smoke at 320. Orders to investigate.
Fly affirmative. Men to action stations. Load SAPs.
Yes, sir. Exeter breaks west, approaching the mysterious ship. Slowly, the masts come into view. Then, the superstructure. And finally, the mighty guns. It's clear. The Germans are here.
It's them. Tell Harwood we have a pocket battleship.
Message confirmed. A pocket battleship at 3:20.
The Exeter reports the enemy in sight.
After months of chase and so many lost merchant ships, the showdown is finally here.
Men to action stations. Heading 30 degrees and full power. Tell Exeter to charge the ship from the south. We surround them from the east as practiced.
Order from Ajax to Exeter. Charge the ship from the south. The rest of the force will execute the other flank. Permission to fire.
But that fires shells over twice as heavy as their own. The Exeter is completely outclassed. But Bell trusts their strategic and numerical advantage.
Flank speed. Keep the current heading.
Herr Kapitän, der Rauch am Horizont.
It's a surprise, but he accepts the challenge.
Nun gut, lasst sie uns treffen.
The two ships keep approaching, the Graf Spee's path unchanged. Bal watches through the binoculars as two giant turrets traverse towards them. And then
Feuererlaubnis.
the first shots of the Battle of River Plate wash across the waves. The shells striking the sea. Exeter Gunnery Officer Lieutenant Commander Richard Jennings remembers,
The captain hailed me, not with the usual rigmarole of enemy in sight, bearing, etc., but with, there's the fucking sheer.
There's the fucking sheer! Open fire at her!
the Exeter unleashes her guns with powerful blasts. The shells fly across the sky, and they too fall short. Upon Exeter, things are getting frantic as the German warship finds its aim. Shells splash closer and closer, littering the deck with deadly shrapnel. But the Exeter too adjusts their range. They fire their 8-inch batteries, striking the Graf Spee on the hull, but failing to pierce its armor. Deep within the German warship, Captain Stubbs of the Doric Star sits locked in a cell, alone and in silence. The shell strikes reverberating on the hull fill his ears. In return, the German salvo strikes just barely short. The massive shells detonate just a few yards away with awe-inspiring power. The shock and shrapnel so powerful, it takes out Exeter's radio.
Sir, we lost contact with Harwood.
It's too late to turn back now. Press on!
Their shells impact the Graf Spee's deck, wrecking anti-aircraft guns, but they're doing nothing to slow the enemy Goliath. Bal watches the enemy with his binoculars. He sees the massive guns fire, launching their shells into the air. They linger for what seems like eternal seconds. Bal doesn't have time to react. Not that it would have done anything, but he can feel it. That is a hit. The brutal impact takes out the turret, and the shrapnel flies towards the bridge. The fragments punch effortlessly through the bridge's thin walls, to tragic results. Bal finds himself on the floor, dazed and surrounded by the fallen. Somehow, through sheer luck, he's largely unhurt. There's no time to mourn. With determination burning in his eyes, Bal returns to his post, but finds his communications destroyed. At that moment, medical personnel rush in, but there's no time. He hurries past them, abandoning the bridge and making his way towards the aft conning station.
Do you have comms here?
No, sir. We've lost them.
He looks around and calls for the first sailor he sees.
You, come over. Have no comms. Tell the port torpedoes to prepare to launch when the enemy comes into view. And the men at the rudder to steer 25 degrees
The unknown
starboard.
sailor salutes and runs off. He rushes for someone else. On his way back to the bridge, Bal continues to recruit more sailors, re-establishing communications with the entire ship.
You, ask the damage control officer for updates. You, tell the magazines I have no comms. Any emergency they need, send me a runner and find someone to tell the same thing to the aft turret.
In a matter of minutes, a team of messengers forms. From this point on, they become Captain Bal's only way to control the ship. But somehow, It works. The ship begins turning starboard, and the torpedoes are ready to fire. Are you ready for a torpedo attack? Test your skills in ship-to-ship action with World of Warships, the sponsor of today's video. Dive into this free-to-play game with over 600 historically accurate ships, including the ones featured in this film, Royal Navy cruisers and the famous Admiral Graf Spee. The stunning new water effects and textures make it so you can almost feel the sea spray on your face. They release new content every month, so you can always count on enjoying fresh gameplay experiences. And don't forget, the game's available on console. Find your community in World of Warships, where there's a passionate and dedicated fan base with chats, live streams, and in-game tournaments. Support the channel and join the great game today using the code YARNHUB to receive a huge starter pack, including 500 doubloons, 1,000,000 credits, and 7 days premium account time, and a ship. But the fish is not included. The Graf Spee's imposing figure drifts into the torpedo's sights, and they launch off into the sea. The 4 remaining guns fire with deafening fury above the waves, while the torpedoes silently approach their target. Despite the messenger's best efforts, though, they could never be quick enough for precise aim, and the torpedoes completely miss. But Bal refuses to stand down.
Keep firing!
The remaining 2 turrets continue to fire, spreading death and destruction across the Graf Spee's exposed elements, but doing little internally. Shell after shell strikes the German warship's heavy armor with little effect, ricocheting away or stopping dead in its tracks. Finally, they strike luck. At last, a round pierces the armor and punches straight through the lower decks and detonates deep within, destroying the fuel purification plant. There are no fires or floods, but in a single blow, the ship has been doomed. Unable to purify its vast stores of diesel, it has cut its usable fuel from days to hours, not enough to return to Europe. But it does nothing to hamper their combat strength. Another salvo falls on the battered heavy cruiser. One shell slamming into the A turret and another punching through the hull. The second shell explodes within and sets fire to an ammunition storage rack. The brave sailors in the station rush for their extinguishers, quelling the flames before a catastrophic fire and explosion could be unleashed. The strike silences Gunnery Officer Richard Jennings' last turret.
Bloody hell!
He decides to abandon his position as director of the control tower and run through the chaos, reaching the Exeter's last working main gun. To the turret crew's astonishment, Jennings climbs to the top of the turret and starts shouting directions.
Travel left! Aim for their turrets!
Jennings stares down the massive enemy warship in the distance as his turret takes aim underneath him.
Fire!
Jennings is blasted with gas and heat from the giant guns, but he takes it.
Correct high! 100! Fire!
Meanwhile, in the 2 light cruisers, Commodore Harwood is becoming impatient with the lack of results. All this time they were executing the other flank, seeking to overwhelm the Graf Spee with the crossfire. But without communication with Exeter, they can't even find out if their aim is true. And now he clearly sees that the Exeter is smoking, enlisting, while the Graf Spee stands seemingly unharmed. With a sinking feeling, the truth dawns on him. They've been doing nothing.
Heading 285, close the distance, proceed at utmost speed.
The ships break formation and charge to Exeter's rescue. Aboard the Graf Spee, Langsdorff spots the incoming British.
Das ist ein Torpedoangriff. Soll Kurs West. Stellt die Nebelwand auf.
But Exeter isn't done yet.
Heading 270!
And their last turret is being commanded by what seems like a madman riding atop. But still, they chase after the Graf Spee, firing with what little they have and scoring hits across the superstructure. The Graf Spee turns all its guns towards them and they open fire. The massive volley falls short by the smallest of margins, creating a huge splash just in front of Jennings' face. But he's unfazed.
You've got the range!
He
Fire!
calls for more, but the gun doesn't move.
What's going on?
We've lost power. It can't traverse.
The water has filtered through the damaged hull and short-circuited the turret systems.
Bloody hell! We've lost the Y turret. Tell the captain.
Sir, white turret has malfunctioned.
Captain Bell is furious, with fire in his eyes.
I'm going to ram the bastard. It'll be the end of us, but it will sink him too.
Order to ram it.
Turn starboard.
Starboard!
The Exeter, in flames and out of options, turns to ram the enemy. But then, a salvo of shells brackets the Graf Spee. The light cruisers Ajax and Achilles have gotten past the smokescreen and have opened fire with vastly improved accuracy.
Harwood is on them. They finally got him.
Verdammt, Sie haben die Reichweite gefunden.
Captain Langsdorff pushes the Exeter to the back of his mind as the new challengers pummel the Graf Spee's upper deck with salvo after salvo. With damage and casualties mounting, Captain Langsdorff orders a retreat.
Feuer einstellen. Volle Kraft voraus. Nehmt Kurs auf Montevideo.
The Ajax and Achilles pummel the ship for another hour as the Graf Spee desperately sails for neutral waters. But they're too far away, and Harwood is determined to not let the ship slip away.
What is our ammunition status?
20% remaining,
Harwood is
sir.
shocked. It's far less than he expected. If he carries on, he could have too little to defend himself if they happen to face another battle.
Hold fire. Pull back and shadow them.
They pursue the Graf Spee all the way to the neutral port of Montevideo, Uruguay. There, the prisoners of the Doric Star are released per international regulations. But back with the Graf Spee, their problems were far from over. Upon their docking in Montevideo, deceit and politics soon follow. The British begin broadcasting easy-to-intercept signals suggesting that reinforcements are arriving. They've no fuel reserves to return home, no ability to fix the fuel plant, and strict orders not to let the ship become interned in Uruguay. There's only one apparent option, and that's to flee Argentina, but he believes a reinforced British fleet will stand in his way.
Ich glaube nicht, dass wir eine andere Wahl haben. Mach die Sprengsätze scharf.
On the 17th of December, the ship, with only Langsdorff and 40 other men aboard, moved out of the Uruguayan waters. It was a devastating blow to Langsdorff. High Command blamed him completely for Admiral Graf Spee's end. Langsdorff wrote, "I alone bear the responsibility for scuttling the Panzerschiff Admiral Graf Spee. I am happy to pay with my life for any possible reflection on the honor of the flag." 3 days later, in a hotel room in Buenos Aires, he took his gun and kept his word. The mighty ship burned in the shallow water for the next 2 days. Despite the lack of decisive victory, the battle was still considered a great success for the Royal Navy. Commodore Henry Harwood was promoted to Rear Admiral and knighted for his leadership. Captain Frederick Secker Bell wouldn't receive any Navy awards for his actions, but he and a good portion of Exeter's crew did get a hero's welcome from the residents of the city of Exeter. Gunnery Officer Richard Jennings, on the other hand, would be awarded the Distinguished Service Cross for his actions and went on to command ships of his own. All 3 men would survive the war. Thanks again to World of Warships. Check out the link in the description.